Alright, what's up guys? I wanted to do a quick walkthrough of the song Get It that I put on the channel about a month ago. So let's get it. I start with the drums when I make a song, and I spend a lot of time layering samples, picking out good kick samples, claps, and hi-hats, and getting those pretty precise. I think it was Tiesto that said the kick drum is the most important part of a house song. And I would say that the kick, the clap, and the hi hat are the most important. But maybe you should trust Tiesto because I think he's got a little more money than me. Anyway, I'm going to start there. So let's listen to my drum sub. So what I do is start with a sub layer, a mid layer, and a pop layer for my kick, and then I EQ those accordingly. So for the sub layer, I'm using big kick. I'm leaving some of the low mids and stuff there too. But it's really preference. I mean, there's no right way, right frequencies to shelve out and cut off. So I would just say experiment with it, but generally what you're going to want to do is leave the mids in the mid layer and leave the highs in the pop layer and get the sub of the sub layer. And then what I do now for my songs is because of this, I'll do like some compression, some multiband compression to preserve the low end and compress the pops and the highs so that it's just blended a little bit together. But for this song, I guess I didn't do that. So yeah, I'm using Drezzo kicks. You can find those samples in Splice. That's the mid layer, and that's the pop layer. Same thing for the clap. I'm layering a lot of these samples together. Starting with a low, like this operator. So this this little, I guess it's a sine wave, is in the key of the song. So over here, this is I just made sure it's in key. So I have this layer, this kind of stereo layer, and then this kind of clappy, mid high. So together, it's got the stereo, it's got that low sine, and then these two claps are blended a little bit. A cool mixing technique, I guess it's not cool, this is just some basic stuff that everybody should be aware of. I'm rolling off everything that isn't a kick and a bass around 50 to 75. So it's preserving that low end. If I take this off, you can see how much in just the clap is all the way down here. I mean, you don't need that, so roll it off. Be pretty harsh with it. I mean, if you use this one, you're still keeping a lot of that stuff just from the analysis. Kind of hard to hear, so I'm just going to trust the visual. Yeah, so that's for that. I'm doing the same thing with the hi-hat here. This, I was kind of experimenting with the granulator, and I really like granular synthesis. I think it's something I want to spend more time on in the future, delving into. But let's look at this, what I'm doing. If basically the grain size, the sample will repeat wherever this is. So if the sample ends for a single hit, you won't hear it repeating, right? You can see it die down. But then when I get here, it's giving this kind of organic roll, I would say, like when a snare, like a stick hits a snare and it's rolling. That's kind of the idea behind this automation. And then that is a little bit more intense, but I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, there's other ways to do granular synthesis. You don't need to have Ableton's granulator. You don't need to be in Ableton. So it's something I would spend time looking up just online and figuring out some cool ways to utilize that. This is a probably what I hear a lot in other songs. You kind of get the same effect by having a arpeggiator triggering a sample and then automating up the not synced repeat time. So you hear like when you playing samples through it and it's repeating really fast, it kind of gets this pitch. So you can hear it there. Yeah. And then you'll see these throughout this song. I was pretty big into mixing in key. You'll notice with Ableton's EQ, you can see what the frequency and what note that corresponds to. So I was big into doing that. I know a couple of friends that I have that are religiously doing that all the time. I would say you could just save all of that for the master stage. If you really want to do this, you don't have to do it. But it's definitely a cool tip to know, and that's why I really like using this EQ, because it's so easy. And I just want to say too, because you'll see this a lot in my chains. I use OTT, but I'm using it very sparingly. So 16, 25, those kind of numbers I'll use a lot on different samples, just to make it brighter, control the multi-band compression, I guess. So let's go to percussion. You'll hear these reverse claps. Just snapping the clap a little bit on the second beat of every measure, second beat of every measure. No need for kickstart on here. I don't know why that's there. A little bit more OTT for this, but what I would say is everybody's using this thing. You don't want to sound like everybody, so just use it subtly. Why not? Cutting out those low frequencies again. This is something I want to spend a little bit of time on. These grooves, these 16th note swings. If you're in Ableton, it's really easy to do. Do a little hot swap, even if you don't have anything on, and you'll find these MPC grooves in your chord library. And so these are emulating the old school Akai MPCs. They had this feature on them. So every 16th note that I have, it's not every, I should say. It's the E's and the U's. So the second 16th note and the fourth 16th note in one beat are pushing to the left. So if I don't have this on, let's listen. It's going to sound straight. So this is what it's going to sound like without it. And it's not bad, but any way that you can add a little bit of groove to your house beats, that's nice, right? And if you're not unaware of this stuff, I just want to help you out a little bit. 50, you'll see this in the clip properties in Logic as well, when it's got that swing, and then you're going to move it to the right and it's going to start at 50. You're like, why the hell is it at 50? 50 means that there is no swing at all. And then when it's 100, it's pushing the 16th note all the way to the next 16th note. So if I'm here and I'm at 100, it's going to, if I'm here and I'm at 100, it's going to be there. So that's why you don't have to get too crazy. I frequently stay in the 57 to 66 range, I would say. But it's something to play around with. I mean, you could take it to the next level and do something pretty crazy at 80 if you wanted to, but not for this song. So anywhere that I have 16th notes, I'm going to want to put those groove parameters on. So for something like this, right, it's a 1 bar sample of the shaker. And I didn't, you'll see a lot of people quantizing directly on the grid and making sure everything lines up. I wanted to keep the groove of the shaker loop that I found and also apply this swing. So these transients are gonna move accordingly. So yeah, everywhere that there's 16th notes, that's gonna happen. So even like melodic instruments, you'll hear it. Like for something like this, I have these snare rolls. So if I don't have it, it's gonna be straight. Right? And I've heard people with swung beats use their like synth note snare rolls and stuff like that, and kept them straight. But it's up to you. I mean, have fun and experiment a little bit, just to be aware of that. Let's do the whole percussion. I don't want to spend a lot of time on everything. I kind of just want to give you a general overview of what I'm doing. So you hear these, have to have that swing to match those hi-hats. No need for it to be in granulator, but I did, I guess. Here's mixing in key again. In the other tutorial video, I talked about saturation a lot, so I like using saturation. Compression, serial compression is what I recently have learned about and have utilized a lot more. So those are drums and percussion. Let's go to the bass. So I've been spending a lot of time doing my own sound design, basically listening to a song that I like, hearing the sound, and trying to emulate it to the best of my ability. So it's a good way to, I guess, separate yourself. But yeah, basically something cool I wanted to show you. In the matrix, you'll see the master tune in the global parameters. And this is the only way I believe to access it. So that's where I have this LFO going to, if I bypass it, right? It's got that pitch down. And like I said in the other tutorial, anything that can help you get frequencies from that 500 to 1K, if you don't need them there, just EQ them out later, which is what I, kind of did on the master sub for the buses, the bass sub. And then, yeah, saturation, compression a little bit. I'm not going to go through every single chain, If you look at the chain, you can kind of see what I did, and hopefully that'll give you some ideas of where you can mess around with. So again, layering, I think there's layering in pretty much all this stuff that I have in this song. So from kicks to claps to basses to chords, bass fills right here. I'll solo that in a second. But here is the here's this one. I'm gonna make another video going through basic sound design stuff, because I think that's where a lot of producers that are starting out, they get a little overwhelmed, and you can get a lot done with just basic shapes, playing with like the FM in here, and just simple. I mean, I guess this is a little bit more complicated, but not too much going on. Triangle, sine, and square. And then there's lots of cool stuff in the filters. Like these formants are cool. This French LP low pass I like, because you just get these crazy kind of combing effects. Really cool. I love Serum, so lots of cool distortion settings in here. And yeah, where did I? Yep. So I think this LFO is going to the master tune. So I'm getting that pitch. Barely audible, but it's there. That's a pretty steep curve, so. Yep, and then layering again with this fill. I'm layering it with the I'm layering it with these snares. So you got this 16th note swing, you can hear that, and then 16th note swing here. Yeah, lots of layers. Layering is cool. Another sound that I made. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you just for proof. Those are saved presets. I think the Kyle Watson sub was right there. The French bass. You know, looking at some Confession tracks and making my own versions of what they got. But I really like these sounds where it's just like these filter sweeps. And then like FM filter sweeps sound pretty cool. So yeah, if you're interested, let me know. I'm going to do another tutorial on those kind of things. So yeah, let's go to the chords. I guess the only, yeah, so I like 7th chords, obviously. That's, I think pretty much everything in here is a 7th chord. But here's the thing I wanted to go over. I froze these up here, and I like the kind of like the rattling of this in the really high end. And so when I pitch this down, you lose it a little bit, and it's here when you transpose it as it is in the higher octave. So yeah, and that's, I had this going. You can see I just deactivated the clip. If you ever get stuck, like for a drop, just maybe change the octave, or that's what I did here. So it's going from like, oh, come on, you can do it. Right. Deeper feel to the track. Here's a layer that I added on, same chords, just. And again, like, I'm not doing too much crazy stuff with the sound design. It's basic shapes and then some FM and LFO going to the filter and I guess the warp right here, or yeah, the FM. So a little bit of delay. Yeah, again, I don't want to spend too much time going in depth on everything. But basically this sound is kind of like what my center would be. And then this layer is got a little bit more width. So I'm using some mid-side EQing, which basically splits the channel between the mids and the sides, right? And I'm pulling out some of those mids, especially in like the 500 range, where I want to keep that preserved for center stuff. And then I'm overemphasizing that with some stereo imaging as well. Yeah, and then, you know, we're going to keep this trend of cutting off stuff that doesn't need the super low lows. So yeah, let's just get this chord sub going. I like, this is probably one of my favorite parts of the track, this little melody. Yeah, nothing too crazy. I mean, a little bit of repetition, but everybody loves repeating shit. This is my favorite part of the track. So I used arcade for these saxophones, and I had it as one channel, duplicated it, panned one a little bit to the left, panned this one a little bit to the right, and that widened it out a little bit. It's got all the same chain on both of them, I think. And then I was able to boost some of the highs and then put it through the sidechain. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to go through. So you'll see these sidechain compressors all over the track. And if you have kickstart, I mean, that's another way to do this. But I'll duplicate my kick track after it's all done, so it's the exact same signal, and then I'll click sends only. So you're not going to hear this track. If I solo it, you won't hear anything. It's got this blue meter to show you that it sends only. And then you can use that to trigger sidechain in on your other tracks. So that's what that is. Okay, recorded my buddy giving me some muted notes. Tropical vibe, you know. This is just a cool little tidbit of information. Hohner, I think that's how you pronounce it, the music company, made this instrument called the guitarette, and basically it's an electric kalimba. But if you look up Hohner guitarette on YouTube, there's this video with like 2,000 views of this old dude just messing around with this. It's the weirdest thing, but basically these handheld electric kalimba with these little metallic tines. And I've been using this sound a lot. I've been hearing this sound a lot in other people's music. But it's got like that detuned, chorusy, just really cool electric kalimba sound. That's pretty much all it is. Yeah. So further in here, I'm using more arcade. $10 a month arcade. It's a VST by Output, and it's really good for just getting instant inspiration. You know, you pick the key, samples immediately get transposed to that key, and then you can test out, 2 octaves of samples for all these different packs that they have. And so then to wrap this up, I just want to emphasize the layering again. So my transitions are super heavily layered. That's where I'm getting a pretty big track count. So you hear that cymbal, reverse cymbal, reverse kick going into my drop, reverse snare, I guess, maybe a little overkill, but that's what I did. Risers, white noise risers. So then with the drop. Yeah. This is something that I like to do towards the end of my songs after I get the arrangement down, is just emphasizing those different song parts. I can't remember the technical term for it. But yeah, just helping emphasize the arrangement so the listener knows, like, hey, it's the drop. Hey, we're coming out of the intro. Hey, we're coming out of the breakdown. Hey, we're coming out of the breakdown here, and then we're going back to the drop, and then we're going to the outro. So that kind of thing. Splice has some really good G house vocal stabs and stuff like that. So I recommend just searching if you want to get some of these kind of sounds, house vocals, G house vocals, and you'll find a bunch of packs. Yeah, and then that's where I got the name for the song. Yep, and then the last thing to wrap this up, I like making my own vinyl noises. So when I have a record player. I was making boom bap a lot and sampling from old records, but now I basically just play the beginning of a record, record it for like a bar, and then I use that as my own stereo image. Like it's probably going pretty wide. Yep, and maybe some reverb on there as well. So yeah, I know this was pretty fast. If you want to see them more in depth, I can definitely do that. I just don't want to bore you, and I want to, I don't want to be that guy that's posting hour-long song breakdowns. Hopefully, this inspired you, and just kind of shows you some good ideas for how to get out of I don't know, creative blocks, stuff like that. As we all go through them. Yeah, I hope you like the song. I hope you like the walkthrough. We're gonna do another one probably in 2 weeks, and my buddy Ryu will be doing that one. And I want to show some tutorials. I don't want to go through the master chain just because I don't want this to be too long. But if you want to see how I'm doing these masters, I can definitely do that. So just let me know. Yeah. Adios, y'all. I hope you like this. Bye.